Karen's face twisted into a sneer as she stormed up the driveway, her sharp heels clicking against the pavement. "How dare you?" she screeched, brandishing a stack of papers in Samantha's direction. "This is an outrage." Samantha stood her ground, jaw set, eyes narrowed. She knew exactly what this was about, the new city ordinance banning leaf blowers, which she had spearheaded as the recently elected mayor. "I'm simply enforcing the law, Karen," she said, her voice level. "Your landscaper was in violation." Violation. Karen's eyes bulged. "This is my home. I'll do as I please." She thrust the papers at Samantha. "These are a cease and desist order and a fine. I won't stand for this." Samantha regarded the documents calmly. "I'm afraid you don't have a choice. The ordinance is clear." Karen's nostrils flared. "You think you can just waltz in here and tell me what to do?" She spat. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 20 years. This is an outrage." Samantha raised a hand, her expression stern. "I'm simply enforcing the law, Karen. I'd advise you to comply." "Comply?" Karen's voice rose to a shriek. "You're nothing but a power-hungry tyrant. I won't be silenced." Samantha's gaze hardened. "This conversation is over. If you continue to defy the ordinance, you'll face further penalties." Karen's face twisted in rage. "Oh, it's not over," she hissed. "Not by a long shot." She whirled around and stormed back to her car, tires squealing as she peeled out of the driveway. Samantha watched her go, a sense of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. She knew Karen was the type to hold a grudge, and she couldn't help but wonder what the woman might do next. With a sigh, she turned and headed back into the house, where her wife, Emily, was waiting anxiously. "What happened?" Emily asked, brow furrowed. Samantha quickly recounted the confrontation. "I'm worried, Em," she admitted. "Karen is not the type to take this lying down." Emily reached out and squeezed Samantha's hand. "I know. But you're doing the right thing. This ordinance is important, and you can't let her bully you into backing down." Samantha nodded, her expression grim. "I just hope she doesn't do anything reckless." Emily pulled Samantha into a hug. "We'll get through this together. I've got your back, no matter what." Samantha wrapped her arms around her wife, drawing strength from her comforting presence. She knew the battle with Karen was just beginning, but she was determined to stand her ground. As the city's new mayor, she had a responsibility to her constituents, and she wouldn't let Karen's entitled tantrum derail her. With a deep breath, Samantha pulled away, her eyes resolute. "Let's see what else Karen has up her sleeve," she said, a hint of steel in her voice. "I'm not going to be intimidated." Emily smiled, pride shining in her eyes. "That's my girl." The next morning, Samantha received an urgent call from the city's public works department. "Mayor, we've got a situation at the water treatment plant," the director said, his voice tense. "It looks like someone has tampered with the system." Samantha felt a chill run down her spine. "Tampered? What do you mean?" "The chlorine levels are dangerously high," the director explained. "If we don't get it under control soon, the entire water supply could be contaminated." Samantha's mind raced. "Do we know who's responsible?" "We're still investigating, but the timing and the nature of the sabotage. It seems like this might be retaliation for the leaf blower ordinance." Samantha's eyes widened. Karen. She felt her heart start to pound. "Mobilize the emergency response team. I'm on my way." As Samantha rushed to the treatment plant, her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Could Karen really be capable of something this reckless and dangerous? The woman was known for her entitled tantrums. But this was on a whole other level. When Samantha arrived, the scene was chaotic. Technicians were scrambling to restore the chlorine levels, while police and fire crews stood by, ready to spring into action if needed. Samantha strode over to the director, her expression grim. "Any updates?" We've isolated the affected systems and are working to bring the chlorine levels back down, the director reported. But it's going to take some time. In the meantime, we've issued a boil water advisory for the entire city. Samantha's stomach twisted with worry. How long before the water is safe to use again? At least 24 hours, maybe longer, the director said. We're doing everything we can, but the damage was extensive. Samantha nodded, her mind racing. She knew the impact this would have on the city's residents, especially the most vulnerable. Schools and businesses would have to shut down, hospitals would be stretched thin, and the elderly and infirm would be at risk. Have you been able to determine the cause? She asked. The director's expression darkened. We found evidence of a tampering device attached to the main chlorine line. Forensics is analyzing it now, but the signatures match Karen Westbrook's landscaper. Samantha felt a surge of anger. That vindictive witch, she muttered under her breath. She's gone too far this time. The director looked at her sympathetically. I know this is personal for you, Mayor, but we need to focus on restoring the water supply right now. The city is counting on you. Samantha took a deep breath, forcing herself to push her personal feelings aside. You're right. What do you need from me? As the director outlined the next steps, Samantha steeled herself for the battle ahead. Karen had crossed a line, and Samantha was determined to make her pay. But first, she had to ensure the safety of her constituents. The water crisis would be her top priority, and she would stop at nothing to get the city's supply back to normal. With the water crisis in full swing, the city was in a state of chaos. Residents were forced to line up at designated distribution centers for bottled water, schools and businesses were shuttered, and the city's hospitals were struggling to maintain operations. Samantha had been working around the clock, coordinating the emergency response and reassuring her constituents. But the strain was starting to show. This is a nightmare, she said, rubbing her temples as she pored over the latest reports. Karen has really outdone herself this time. Emily, who had been by Samantha's side throughout the ordeal, reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I know, honey, but you're doing an incredible job. The city is lucky to have you. Samantha managed a wan smile. I just wish I could focus on fixing the problem instead of dealing with Karen's antics. Well, maybe it's time to take the gloves off, Emily said, her expression hardening. She needs to be held accountable for this. Samantha nodded, her eyes narrowing. You're right. I've been too soft on her. It's time to play hardball. Gathering her resolve, Samantha placed a call to the city's top prosecutor. I need you to push for criminal charges against Karen Westbrook, she said, her voice authoritative. We have evidence that she's responsible for the water contamination. The prosecutor hesitated. Madam Mayor, I understand the gravity of the situation, but charges like these could be difficult to prove. We'll need to build an airtight case. Then build one, Samantha snapped. This is a matter of public safety, and I won't let Karen get away with it. Throw the book at her. The prosecutor sighed. Understood. I'll get my team on it immediately. Samantha hung up, a glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. That's a start. Now, let's focus on getting the water system back online. Over the next several days, the city's public works crews worked tirelessly to restore the water supply. Samantha was on the ground, coordinating the effort and providing updates to the public. Her determination and leadership were inspiring, and the residents rallied behind her. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office was building its case against Karen. Forensic evidence, witness testimony, and a paper trail of threats and intimidation all pointed to her involvement in the sabotage. Finally, after nearly a week of chaos, the water treatment plant was back online, and the boil water advisory was lifted. Samantha called a press conference to announce the good news. I want to thank the residents of our city for their patience and resilience during this difficult time, she said, her voice strong and assured. Thanks to the hard work of our dedicated public works crews, Our water supply is now safe and fully operational. She paused, her expression hardening. But let me be clear, this was not an isolated incident. We have evidence that this act of sabotage was deliberately orchestrated by a member of our community in an attempt to undermine the democratically elected leadership of this city. Samantha's gaze swept over the crowd, her eyes narrowing. I want to assure you all that the perpetrator will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Justice will be served. As the crowd erupted in applause, Samantha felt a surge of determination. She was ready to take the fight to Karen, and she wouldn't stop until the woman was brought to justice. The next morning, Samantha was in her office, poring over the latest updates from the prosecutor's office, when her assistant knocked on the door. Madam Mayor, Karen Westbrook is here to see you. She's not happy. Samantha let out a heavy sigh. Send her in. Moments later, Karen burst into the office, her face flushed with rage. You think you can just ruin my life and get away with it? She spat, slamming her fist on Samantha's desk. Samantha regarded her calmly. I'm not the one who sabotaged the city's water supply, Karen. That was all you. Sabotage? Karen's eyes narrowed. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me, Samantha said, her voice steady. We have evidence linking you and your landscaper to the chlorine tampering at the treatment plant. Karen's face twisted in fury. This is an outrage. I'm being framed. Samantha raised a hand. Save it, Karen. The prosecutor's office is building a case against you as we speak. You're going to jail. Karen's eyes widened in panic. You can't do this to me. I'm a pillar of this community. That's exactly why you should be held to a higher standard, Samantha said, her gaze unwavering. You abused your power and endangered the lives of thousands of people. There are consequences for that. Karen's expression turned desperate. Please, you have to help me. I'll do anything. Samantha shook her head. It's too late for that, Karen. You made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. Karen's shoulders slumped, her eyes wild with fear. You can't do this to me, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm not the one doing it, Karen, Samantha said, her voice laced with pity. You did this to yourself. With that, Karen turned and fled the office, her heels clacking against the tile floor. Samantha watched her go, a sense of relief washing over her. As the door closed behind Karen, Samantha's assistant poked her head in. Well, that was intense. Samantha nodded, a weary smile on her face. You have no idea. The assistant hesitated. Do you think she'll try to retaliate? Samantha's expression darkened. I wouldn't put it past her. But I'm not going to let her intimidate me. She's gone too far this time. The assistant nodded, his brow furrowed. I just hope she doesn't do anything reckless. Samantha sighed. Me too. But I'm not going to back down. Karen needs to be held accountable for what she's done. With a renewed sense of purpose, Samantha turned her attention back to the prosecutor's case. She was determined to see this through, no matter what Karen threw her way. As the day wore on, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was plotting something, but she refused to let it rattle her. She had the law on her side, and she was ready to fight. The next morning, Samantha arrived at City Hall to find the building in a state of chaos. Her assistant rushed over, his face pale. Madam Mayor, there's been a break-in at the prosecutor's office. All the evidence against Karen Westbrook has been stolen. Samantha felt her heart drop. What? How could this happen? The security footage shows a group of masked intruders breaking in and ransacking the office, the assistant explained, his voice shaking. They knew exactly what they were looking for. Samantha's mind raced. Karen, she muttered under her breath. That vindictive witch. She turned to her assistant, her expression grim. Mobilize the police. We need to find those documents before they disappear for good. As the police swarmed the prosecutor's office, Samantha paced the hallway, her thoughts whirling. She should have known Karen would try something like this. The woman had no shame when it came to protecting her own interests. Madam Mayor. The lead detective approached her, his brow furrowed. We've combed the office, but the evidence is gone. Whoever took it, they were professionals. Samantha clenched her fists, her knuckles turning white. This is unacceptable. We can't let Karen get away with this. The detective sighed. I'm afraid it's not going to be easy to track down those documents. They could be anywhere by now. Samantha's expression hardened. Then we need to find another way to bring her to justice. As Samantha left the prosecutor's office, her mind was racing. She couldn't let Karen's brazen act of sabotage go unpunished. The city's residents were counting on her to keep them safe, and she wasn't about to let them down. Arriving back at City Hall, Samantha summoned her top advisors. Karen Westbrook has stolen the evidence against her, she announced, her voice grave. We need to find another way to build the case. The advisors exchanged worried glances. Madam Mayor, without that evidence, it's going to be incredibly difficult to prove her involvement, one of them said. Samantha's jaw tightened. I'm not giving up. There has to be another way. As the meeting progressed, Samantha's team brainstormed various strategies, but each one seemed more far-fetched than the last. Finally, one of the advisors spoke up. What if we turn the tables on her? Use her own tactics against her. Samantha's eyes narrowed. Go on. We know she's behind this, even if we can't prove it. What if we dig into her past, find any other skeletons in her closet, and use that to pressure her? Samantha considered the idea, her mind already worrying. It's risky, but it might be our only option. We need to find something, anything, that we can use to bring her down. The advisors nodded, their expressions grim. We'll get started right away, Madam Mayor. As Samantha watched her team disperse, she felt a sense of determination settle over her. She wasn't going to let Karen win. She'd find a way to bring the woman to justice, no matter what it took. Over the next few weeks, Samantha's team worked tirelessly to uncover any potential leverage against Karen. They combed through her financial records, business dealings, and even her personal life, searching for any hint of wrongdoing. The pressure was on, and Samantha could feel the tension building. She knew that if they couldn't find something substantial, Karen would walk free, and that was simply unacceptable. Finally, one of the advisors burst into Samantha's office, a triumphant gleam in his eyes. Madam Mayor, we found something. Something big. Samantha leaned forward, her attention fully engaged. What is it? It appears that Karen has been illegally dumping toxic waste from her landscaping business for years, the advisor explained, his voice grim. We've got evidence of payments to a shady waste disposal company, as well as several incidents where her employees were caught red-handed. Samantha felt a surge of hope. That's exactly the kind of leverage we need. Good work. The advisor nodded. There's more. It also seems that she's been using her position on the neighborhood HOA to cover up her misdeeds, intimidating anyone who dares to speak out. Samantha's eyes narrowed. Typical Karen. Always abusing her power. Exactly, the advisor said. We've got a solid case here, Madam Mayor. All we need to do is bring it to the authorities and let them take it from there. Samantha leaned back in her chair, a weight lifting from her shoulders. Excellent. Let's get this moving. I want Karen Westbrook behind bars before the end of the week. The advisor nodded, a grim smile on his face. Consider it done. True to his word, the advisor wasted no time in presenting the evidence to the district attorney's office. Within 48 hours, Karen Westbrook was in custody, facing a slew of charges related to her illegal waste dumping and abuse of power. Samantha watched the news coverage with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that justice had been served. She knew that Karen would fight tooth and nail to try and wriggle her way out of this, but she was confident that the evidence was too strong to ignore. As the days passed, The case against Karen continued to build, and Samantha couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. She had known all along that the woman was a menace to the community, and now she was finally being held accountable. But even as the trial date approached, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that Karen had one more trick up her sleeve. The woman was nothing if not resourceful, and Samantha knew that she would stop at nothing to protect her own interests. Still, Samantha was determined to see this through. She had a responsibility to her constituents, and she wasn't about to let Karen's entitled tantrums derail her efforts to keep the city safe and clean. As the courtroom doors swung open and Karen was let in, Samantha felt a surge of determination. This was her moment to prove that no one was above the law, not even the city's most notorious Karen. The trial against Karen Westbrook was a spectacle, with the media and public following every twist and turn. Samantha watched from the front row, her eyes narrowed as Karen's defense team mounted a desperate attempt to discredit the evidence and portray her as the victim. But Samantha knew better. She had seen firsthand the lengths that Karen would go to in order to protect her own interests, and she was determined to ensure that the truth prevailed. As the prosecution laid out its case, the damning evidence against Karen mounted. The illegal waste dumping, the HOA intimidation tactics, and of course, the sabotage of the city's water supply. It was a damning litany of crimes that seemed impossible to refute. Yet, Karen's lawyers fought tooth and nail, casting doubt on the evidence and painting their client as a misunderstood pillar of the community. Samantha could barely contain her frustration as they spun their web of lies and distortions. But just when it seemed like the defense might be gaining the upper hand, a new witness took the stand, one that Samantha had been keeping in her back pocket. It was Karen's former landscaper, the very same man who had been caught red-handed tampering with the water treatment plant. And this time, he wasn't holding back. Under the prosecution's careful questioning, the landscaper laid out the entire scheme in excruciating detail. How Karen had pressured him to illegally dump the toxic waste, how she had threatened him and his family if he ever dared to speak out, and how she had masterminded the water sabotage as a way to retaliate against Samantha. The courtroom was stunned into silence as the damning testimony unfolded. Karen's face had gone pale, her eyes widening in panic as she realized that her carefully constructed web of lies was unraveling. Samantha watched, her heart pounding, as the case began to crumble around the once powerful woman. She could see the realization dawning on Karen's face, that this time there would be no escaping the consequences of her actions. As the trial reached its climactic conclusion, the jury deliberated for only a matter of hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all counts. Samantha felt a wave of relief wash over her as the judge pronounced the sentence, 10 years in prison, with no possibility of parole. Karen's howls of protest echoed through the courtroom, but Samantha paid them no mind. She had won. Justice had prevailed, and the city's residents could finally breathe a sigh of relief. As Karen was led away in handcuffs, Samantha caught her eye, and for a moment, she felt a pang of pity. But it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of satisfaction. This was the price Karen had to pay for her reckless, entitled behavior. Samantha knew that the battle had been hard fought, but in the end, she had emerged victorious. The city was safe, and its residents could trust that their mayor would always put their interests first, no matter how powerful the opposition might be. In the aftermath of the trial, the city breathed a collective sigh of relief. Karen Westbrook's downfall had been the talk of the town, and Samantha's decisive action had only solidified her reputation as a mayor who would stop at nothing to protect her constituents. As Samantha walked the streets, she was greeted with warm smiles and enthusiastic applause. The residents of the city had rallied behind her, grateful for her unwavering commitment to justice and the rule of law. But for Samantha, the victory was bittersweet. While she was relieved that Karen had finally been held accountable for her misdeeds, she couldn't help but feel a tinge of sadness. After all, the woman had once been a pillar of the community, respected and admired by many. It didn't have to end this way, Samantha mused, as she sat in her office, reflecting on the events that had unfolded. Emily, her ever-present source of support, reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. "You did what you had to do, Samantha. Karen left you no choice." Samantha nodded, her expression pensive. "I know, but that doesn't make it any easier." Emily's gaze softened. "You're a good person, Samantha. You care about this city and its people, and you're willing to fight for what's right. That's what makes you a great mayor." Samantha managed a small smile. "I just hope the residents will remember that, even after the dust settles." "They will," Emily assured her. "You've proven yourself time and time again. This is just one more example of your commitment to the city and its people." Samantha took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her responsibilities settle upon her shoulders. "I suppose you're right, but I can't help but wonder, what's next?" Emily squeezed her hand again. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Just like we always have." Samantha nodded, her expression resolute. "You're right, and I'm ready for whatever comes our way." As the days passed, Samantha continued to lead the city with the same unwavering determination that had defined her tenure as mayor. She knew that the battle with Karen had been just the beginning, and that there would be many more challenges to come. But Samantha was undaunted. She was driven by a deep sense of purpose, a commitment to her constituents that ran deeper than any personal or political considerations. She would do whatever it took to keep her city safe and prosperous, no matter the cost. And as she looked out over the bustling streets, Samantha couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was her city, and she would fight for it with every fiber of her being. No more Karens were going to stand in her way. With a renewed sense of purpose, Samantha turned her attention to the tasks at hand, ready to tackle the next challenge that came her way. The city was in good hands, and she wouldn't let them down.